Radio presents The Truth Denied, Talk Radio, with your host, Roxy Lopez, where truth never lies. If you would like to speak with Roxy on the air, the call-in number is 347-327-9997. Here she is, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'll be your host today, Roxy Lopez. We've got a great guest coming on the show today. I'm very excited to hear what Laura Eisenhower has to say. I know a lot of you are very excited to hear some of Laura's work and what she's, up to for 2012. This is a big year for a lot of us. And Laura will get into a little bit of her background, but for those of you who don't know Laura Eisenhower, she is a cosmic mythologist, a global alchemist, and a clairvoyant healer. And, of course, she is the great-granddaughter of Dwight David Eisenhower. So this is a really special engagement with Laura. She's a busy lady, and she is on a profound mission to complete his legacy, Dwight Eisenhower's legacy, and reveal our true origins with extraordinary intuitive gifts, which are deeply connected with the Magdalene and Sophia energies of love and wisdom. And we're going to talk about that today as well. I know that some of you have been in and you're very interested in hearing more about these energies. Laura's going to run some ideas about 2012 by us and the Mars agenda, divine feminine, the DNA. These are all topics of real interest this year. They have been for a few years for myself, but I know a lot of you are just now kind of stumbling into this paradigm shift, this new world that we are designing as humanity. So I'd like to welcome Laura Eisenhower to the show today. Good morning, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I'm great. So where do you want to begin? Just for those who aren't familiar with you, Laura, why don't we just start with a little background, how you got into what you are doing with, cosmic mythology and being a global alchemist and a clairvoyant healer. What does that mean to you, and how did you stumble into it, and a little bit about your lineage as well? That'd be great.
Sure. Well, it started really young. Just this awareness that I had based on the state of things on the planet, and growing up in this family and seeing what Eisenhower, what he was all about, what his presidency was about, what being a general was about. And, we only hear a certain portion of the story in our history books. And I was getting in tune with, much deeper layers, connect with extraterrestrials, that connect with, the deeper layers of the military industrial complex, and, really what the bigger picture is and why these events in history have played out the way they have in the last, couple hundred years. So in my own intuitive knowing, I just sort of backtracked and went deep into a process of uncovering a lot of different things in our ancient history and the roots of these type of agendas that, created the Nazi Party and the Illuminati. And, of course, this leads into the Mars agenda. So I guess you could say that starting from the age of 6 or 7, I was on an incredible journey of just trying to piece all these different things together, looking at layers that we don't see in view in our school, in our books, or on the record, I guess you could say. So a lot of it has to do with the divine feminine. It has to do with the myths. So when I say cosmic mythologist, it's really looking into the story of creation and how the imbalance between the masculine and feminine has come about, where the invading energies took place and what the stories are behind them, so that we can really be on this path of ascension and break free of the false matrix and the threats of the military-industrial complex by fully being able to identify with it on a soul level, through knowing our history on a soul level. And that's what myth really shows, is the deeper story on a soul level, rather than just the facts and the information, that we're fed. So I was always on those, deep journeys in communication with other beings. I was in communication with the spirit of Ike, and was just really going off the beaten path and way, way, way out of the box. And none of my family was ever talking about extraterrestrials. There's no information I'm coming forward with based on family discussions or, certain information I was given based on, being a part of this family line. I was still close to family, but it was all very much what we see in history books is what I was being told in the family. So when, the rumors about Ike's encounters with extraterrestrials were coming about, I immediately started to remember, just my whole childhood and just this journey that I've been on and how it all really does connect. So I guess just to sort of make a long story short, I've just been piecing dots together, how the myths of the divine feminine and our creation connect with the military-industrial complex and, the Anunnaki, the Illuminati, and, the tree of good and evil, the tree of life, and 2012 and the ascension that we're in right now. And so there's the Venus transits and all this incredible alchemical stuff going on, which is why I call myself a global alchemist, because I'm sort of riding the currents of the Venus transits, connecting deeply to the planet Venus and the archetypes connected with Venus. And then there's, the attack, the whole just unethical power structures that are run by these dark energies that want to stop this natural process. So this connects to stargates, artificial stargates, and natural stargates, and of course our chakra system and our beliefs and how they've been manipulated. So I guess I've been, really connecting dots between myth, ancient history, the Illuminati, the military-industrial complex, the hidden agendas connected to Mars, and the ascension process that we're in, and, dimensions and stargates, and seeing that everything, all of this is connected. Extraterrestrials, archons, higher races, we're dealing with a multi-cosmos, we're multi-dimensional beings, and so we're connected to all these energies. And so I've kind of come up with my own theories and philosophies, with my experience being a backup, and a lot of other whistleblowers, being a backup, and just the story of, what I've experienced in this family line also kind of backing all this up. So in a way, I've sort of come up with my own explanation.
Yeah.
That not just philosophy, it really does have a lot of validation on all these different levels. And when I went to the Clairvoyant Institute, I stumbled upon it. They really validated all this. I kind of expected to go there and have them tell me, well, you've been delusional your whole life, and we're really here to kind of help you kind of come back to reality. Because I was thinking all these concepts I had, all these intuitive notions I had in this book that I wrote about the journeys into the underworld and all this mythological stuff and how it connects to the political game and just, the deeper story and how it's manifesting on the world stage. I thought, maybe I'm, far off. Maybe this is just, I have a wild imagination. But they really did validate. They said, this is really real, and, you have to become senior to these energies. It's not bad karma that you're just under attack, simply for, what you're here to do. Because this realm of duality does not welcome our ascension. So they helped me understand, the level of attack I was dealing with. But it was after, I went to the Clairvoyant Institute that I was recruited to Mars, and everything kind of came to a head, where all the stuff that I've written about and been experiencing was starting to show up in the physical, where the actual agenda and the Mars agenda was steering me to actually inhabit a Mars colony. So all this different stuff I was feeling as far as the imbalance of the masculine and feminine and the global elite rulership and the Illuminati, controls on our planet, all of a sudden it was knocking on my door wanting me to, be a part of this. And so this was a chance to have a showdown and to really anchor my purpose, my mission, which is to rise above these entities, to be a conscious creator who's not going to be swept along by, threats or positive sort of reinforcements about me being protected and just whatever I was being fed that felt very deceitful. It was my chance to stand my ground, which felt like, it was long overdue on many incarnations of really looking to just confront the opposition and gain my seniority and gain my power back. So it had to do with the underworld journey and the cosmic womb and Mother Earth. And so we are all doing this. We all are living very parallel lives as we go through our dark nights of the soul, and we're, pulling our power back from all these, deceitful power structures that have been really harming us with a disguise as being our leaders and actually caring. We're all in this process. So I just sort of tell a story that we're all going through, but a particular dimension of it, which is a little bit more unseen and a little bit more difficult to grasp, I'm bringing as much expression to as possible, because in that place of identification with it, we can transmute these energies and we can do the soul work that'll lift us out of this, rather than, always trying to make sense out of the information, which can keep us in our heads and not in our hearts or in the energies that we need to be in touch with to fully go through this transformation.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. You said a lot there, and I have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned this period of ascension, this period of, I personally have called it, DNA activation, whatever you want to call it, ascension, like you said, lifting up and out of the world of duality, etc. Can you explain a little bit, because I get a lot of emails about this night of the soul, this oppression, suppression that people are going through, and it's really heavy. It's really, really heavy. And you mentioned the journey to the underworld. Can you perhaps give us a little bit about your own personal journey to the underworld and what that felt like for you, and what that taught you, how that was an important piece of the puzzle, if you will, and an important part of your own evolution in this?
What an awesome question. Oh gosh, yeah, it was so intense. It's like, realizing that something is just not right, that you can't go through the normal emotions of what it means to be human, what it means to, look for success and find, a happy life. I wasn't quite going down that road. I had a lot of opportunities being in Eisenhower, and I could have, taken them and had much more of an easy life than I've had. But I sort of, it was kind of not, a conscious choice, but it definitely was a part of my soul agreement, was to pretty much fall off the face of the earth and go through different dimensional gateways and gatekeepers, which I call the controllers, who have our planet in lockdown, who have, controlled Gaia, weather modification, things like HARP, different technologies, and all the ripples that take place on powerful points on the grid line. And just really getting into that zone, the creative cauldron of Mother Earth, and how there's been, forces that have been trying to steer her energies in a direction that she doesn't want it to go. And of course, she's all powerful and can destroy all this, but she's giving us a chance as human beings to be extensions of her and co-create with her, and be in touch with the cosmic intelligence to bring about a transformation that we can experience without having to be wiped off. And that's eventually going to happen, but it's like she's patient for us to sort of understand, because in a sense we're in the school of duality, and so she holds a lot of pain and a lot of, manipulative things in her field, knowing that, her spirit's incorruptible, but there's a sense of allowing this to happen for our own benefit. Children rebel, children turn against their mother, and as much as it wounds the mother, she holds a space of unconditional love and patience for them to turn. And so there's a long, period where she's doing this, and this is the time right now between the year 2000 and 2017 that the natural stargates are going to open. So she's really been holding out for this period where we have a chance to open up to what and who we truly are, which connects us with her, which allows the regeneration and the alchemical transmutation to take place. Well, if we don't make it there, we're already dealing with, the bifurcation, the triplefication to a higher world, new Earth. But while we're here, we're working on this particular density. So, she's got much higher emanations of herself, but this particular one, we learn based on seeing what she goes through and relating it to ourselves, because we are, in a sense, mini Gaias, and we're dealing with the same laws that the planetary body deals with. And so that's what really the journey was to me. I was going into the soul, the world soul of our planetary body, to understand the forces she's been dealing with, to assist in helping her break free of it. Even though there's higher worlds and she's, doesn't really need that, in this particular density, she does need us. She does require us to go deep, to reconnect to the divine parents, to the primordial blueprint, so that we can wipe away forces that are wishing, to control this level of her being. It's like an aspect of her. And I can get into the creation stories about Sophie and how this is an aspect of her. And there's much more to her than just this. But it's our job to really focus on the area because it does affect it affects our soul journey. It affects our evolution. And the time control technologies, the wish of these fallen angelic realms to control the stargates is keeping us in this constant cycle of reincarnation, which doesn't allow us to transcend into a realm where we can just go through portals and experience our universal family in the multidimensional cosmos without having to go through the cycle of birth and death and all this type of stuff. So when I went into the world soul energy, I was working on really merging and lifting the veil between life and death, merging polarity, creating an alchemical marriage. But to do that, one has to go through all the different gateways and gatekeepers. And so as I lived my body for a really, really long time, I had about 3% of women running my body. And I say this with backup validation testimony from many healers, shamans, clairvoyants that I worked with when I was coming out of it, who I didn't seek out, but the synchronicity lined up, which saved my life in a lot of ways because you can't make sense out of this stuff. You go crazy, Like you need somebody to say, this is exactly what you're going through. And they said that, you've been clearing wormholes from inorganic entities, which in a sense have been blocking the ability for the natural stargate to open. And as a child, I knew that my job was to assist in opening the natural stargates. I was having reoccurring dreams and this and that. So the journey into the underworld, in a sense, was to reclaim the mother womb, similar to, Persephone being abducted by Hades. In a sense, dragging her into her own creativity, but locking her there and using her creativity for her own means. They've been doing this to Gaia for thousands of years, and it's very much tied up into these myths. So understanding the archetype of Venus in these myths, one can go through this journey to fruition, complete these myths by getting out of the underworld, getting senior to these forces that wish to control, and taking it to a whole other level. And so when the Mars recruitment came about, and I was kind of yanked off to that kind of underworld, but in the physical sense, not so much in the out of the body journey I had taken, I realized, that was in preparation for this other sort of form of abduction or manipulation, which was to take me off.
Right. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Laura. And I do get what you're saying. I'm very familiar with, for instance, the Illuminati, you making use of our sacred symbols, our vortexes. They're using those power grids, those PowerPoints for our own demise. And it can go both ways. The yin and the yang. You take something that's very sacred to us and turn it upside down. So I completely understand. And the idea of the perceptions are everything, but the inside journey is what is propelling us forward. And yes, it can be painful. We're shedding old ideas, we're shedding old ways, we're shedding something we're used to. Humans don't like change, and that that becomes pain, which we resist. And and it's difficult. It's a difficult balance, and what you're describing as well. And I can certainly appreciate it when you're talking about, you can't make sense. You can't wrap your human mind or a limited mind around things that are happening on other dimensions. So I completely get that. But at the same time, in your heart, in your soul, in your gut, in your solar plexus, you know that what you're going through is absolutely reality. And this is that dual reality we have going on too. And it's just absolutely astounding. So when you talk about this Mars recruitment, I'm very interested in that. What is that all about?
I just love everything you just said. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of like a natural thing. It's like we naturally want to heal. I mean, the forces of nature only know to heal. And so we get thrown in these incredible journeys, and we can escape it, we can medicate it, we can deny it, or we can face it head on. And so the Mars recruitment was very much facing something head on that I was already energetically working with. And this connects to chakras and it connects to stargates, because when we think about the Mars agenda, there's been a big cover-up. There's been, in the Eisenhower administration, they set up the concept of Alternative 3, which is off-planet colonies on other planets like Mars and underground bases in order to prepare for cataclysmic changes or in the event of all sorts of things taking place. Well, these sort of agreements were with a race of beings that are kind of behind that timeline, the catastrophic timeline. And so the necessity is based on an agenda, not based on natural order or the way that our planetary body is evolving, so therefore we're reacting. It's more the things that are destroying it and creating this have a backup plan. While everything, is depopulated to create new world order, they have a place to go and then come back and do their thing. So I started to recognize in this Mars recruitment that it was tied up into an agenda that was very much dark. It was about control. It was about the control of Mother Earth, not letting her use her natural energies to, balance herself or decide who, will stay on the surface and who won't. Based on just like a human body who has an immune system and is dealing with germs and viruses and parasites, finds its own equilibrium and balance in order to, not attract negative forces or attack. I mean, we all just learn how to do that over time. And of course, we're led astray by doctors and pharmaceutical companies, but ultimately, we learn our lessons and we get back to the core truth. And so I was already really in touch with the core truth of what worked for me. It's like, just like you said, I didn't need anybody, to understand what I was going through because it was my reality and my truth. The only reason that, this validation from the outside came, I think, was in case I ever did talk about it. If people, did need, some sort of testimony that I'm not nuts, then I would have, a paper trail of people that can verify that this information is what they saw. And it's not just all from the same people. And that's just, a little bit of backup for safety, but I really didn't need it, except for that feeling of isolation and not having anybody to share it with. I knew that this was truth, and I didn't need anything. I just needed to do it, and it didn't matter. Like, whether anybody gets it or not, I'm here to do this. It's life or death as far as if I don't own up to it, like, it'll destroy me. I mean, if you don't live your truth, it ends up destroying you. So it was the energies that wanted to destroy me were always so powerful that the force of truth was the only thing that really could get me out of this agenda or out of the underworld or out of, the game. And so as it was pushing on me and pushing me into a corner and really taking me to places internally that were so difficult to survive, you just keep blossoming your truth and just what you're doing, and you defy caring about whether you live or die. You're just kind of holding and it's more powerful than anything. And it's like bigger picture. It's like, we're just inhabiting these human vessels. It's like, that's not what needs to be preserved. We need to get out of this game regardless of what happens. It's just that intention, I'll just stay true to regardless of anything else. And I'll try and be safe, but, I can't be ruled by the fear. And so I didn't have the fear, and I was willing to face all these people, and I still am, and none of them scare me, and they're just figments of, an imagination that's run wild and has grounded itself into a reality that's this world that we live in. And in the realm of duality, it's all light and the dark, high beings, low beings, and everything in between. And we have the opportunity to sort it out within our own nature by going on these journeys. So the Mars agenda really represented an outer manifestation of, stopping the military-industrial complex, stopping the patriarchal global elite game, and whatever agreements with, certain extraterrestrial beings that have wanted to keep us in this loop, that, really want to preserve the agenda of control. So when I was, face-to-face with it, it was, easy to just, keep on moving through it until I was free of it. And there was no real plan except for just the constant reaction I had, of absolutely not, there's just no way I'm going to go, and just being firm with it. You set that intention, everything that you say and do assists in creating it. So whether I had to get raging mad or expose everything that they were about over the phone so they knew that I knew what they were up to, because they didn't think I'd figure it out. All their stories, all their occupations were covered up. Their deeper occupation, they have cover jobs, it's a physicist, but, they don't, it doesn't say that they're involved in Black Ops projects. Now, if you Google their names, you see all that. But back in 2006, when I was getting recruited, when I Googled their names, they just had normal, cover jobs, and so did my ex. What happened was I met somebody, and we formed a relationship. And in the relationship, he was starting to try and steer me to go into this Mars agenda, Mars colony thing. And I discovered, based on the names he was dealing with, that they were involved with much more, but it took me about 2 weeks to figure that out because there was no clear website or information saying that they were involved in these projects. But I knew that they were because of everything that was going down. There was mind control involved, there was psychotronic weapons, there was false artificial telepathy information that he was picking up on connected to this Mars recruitment, and I knew something was majorly wrong. I was having prophetic dreams about the whole thing, telling me to stick with my mission and showing me the scenario of them taking me off planet and that I had a choice. And this was early on, and that dream helped me break free because, it just further validated my whole life experience of being in touch with these energies since I was young. And the energies that they were basically really, alerting me to when I was young was that you have to stay true to this, to who you are. Don't forget this, because they'll rip it away, that you'll lose all sense of yourself. You're going to, basically leave your body. I mean, they didn't explain it as exact as that, but, hold on to this truth for dear life, because, something's going to try and get you so off into another direction that you won't be able to fulfill your mission. So it was a preparation. So when everything else was unfolding, I always had that to fall back on, that amount of, light and remembrance, and because everything was so activated when I was young. And then when it was ripped away, it was like I knew to return, and to bust through this matrix by going through the underworld and the labyrinths and facing all the archetypes and the gatekeepers to basically get that arena back, and to help, humanity anchor in that energy. And, has to do with Venus transits, has to do with the Tree of Life, it has to do with information that I've received my whole life that have, really connected me to this energy. Even though I knew it, it was starting to come at me from others that were assisting me along the way. And we're all doing this. This is what the unified field is. This is what Venus is. It's our heart chakra. So on a heart level, we're all taking this journey together. I'm just kind of, putting words to it, because it was just the Mars recruitment ends up being, an energy that we're all dealing with. But here's, a view of it that maybe others won't be able to see, because it's all so covered up. And they even said, one of the most expensive secrets they've ever tried to keep has to do with this stuff, the divine feminine, the Venus, and just, everything going on Earth. And that's part of why they wanted to take me off planet. So anyway, I escaped that whole agenda, but we're still watching Gaia get onslaughted with, and humanity with tsunamis and things, like Fukushima, and, the oil spill wasn't too long ago, and there's still a lot of false flags and a lot of heavy energy we're dealing with. But I knew going to Mars and being protected from that wasn't true protection, because, I don't want to hang out with the villain, and, because even though it's on a need-to-know basis and not everybody involved in those projects even know that they're serving the dark side, they're well-intentioned, good people that have no idea. It's not about who's right or wrong or good or evil. It's just like, what is right? What is the bigger picture? What is divine will? What is Gaia, source energy, God, goddess want? The truth of who we are. And it was like, no, not go to Mars. Stay here and finish your work and help open this natural stargate. And we're all carrying this, and to align with, other beings that are here with the same kind of commitment. And so, I just, this is my piece of it, and really experiencing just how, much we're all connecting on this level. Basically, we're taking the Mars agenda and we're exposing it, and we're raising octaves of Mars energy, as a collective conscious sort of vibration, not personal, as how Mars affects us in our own life. We're dealing with the micro and macro. So we're dealing with Mars. We're in duality when we're in our Mars energy and in our ego. But when our Mars energy is aligned to our higher self, we're in divine will. So that Mars energy is working on behalf of divine will. So we're all personally dealing with how to get out of duality, how to resolve our ego issues, and get into our higher self. Well, the same thing's happening on the planet. So exposing the Mars agenda and not letting the Mars agenda have the control that it wished to have. In a sense, it's what we're doing internally when we're not allowing our ego to run the show anymore, and we're expanding into something far greater. And so the Venus transits have been doing this, and the whole Mars cover-up and just the energy of the divine feminine returning is doing all this on a global level, which is leading to ascension while we're all personal finding enlightenment, realizing that we've always been enlightened. The rest of it is just about programming and a huge agenda to steer us off course. So we're divine beings, and that's not like something we need to attain. We just have to see the game that's been being played and how much it's taken us so far away from who we are, and that we're born into it. And without going on that dark night of the soul or underworld journey, we're kind of locked in the programming. And the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah and all the symbols, show that story. And just like you were saying, as we do this alchemical work, the Venus transits are creating a pentagram in the sky, and it's turning the inverted pentagram that the Illuminati have been using and turning it upright again. So we're turning all those things upright again.
Which is fantastic. I mean, and I love what you're saying about, once you plug in, once you start to discern, and discernment, I mean, this is an ancient word, discernment. To discern that is a sign of wisdom, somebody who can now discern, where you no longer are weighing things out indefinitely or analytical about it, where your discernment just kicks in and tells you what to do, where to go, how to do it, who to meet, whatever. And we are actually, again, shedding, this whole lie. We're just shedding the lie. And now what makes, in your opinion, I definitely feel it. I feel a speeding up happening. I feel like all forces are on board. I feel like it's like the, Super Bowl game of the spirit right now. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. Some people call it the battle between heaven and hell, whatever. What makes 2012 so important? Not that any other year or any other day isn't important, but what makes 2012, in your opinion, why is it speeding up right now? Why are the veils being lifted right now? What happened? Did we meet a saturation on the planet in the consciousness or something? Because everything's going really, really fast now.
Right. It's like, they could call it the convergence of timelines, and, from the shadow government and their use of technologies to create artificial stargates and our own natural organic processes, souls incarnating on the organic path of light, opening the natural stargate. We have this sort of artificial world against the organic natural world, connected to Gaia and the natural forces that are just, it's like a flower blooming. It's inevitable. And so this other thing is just kind of this attack. Doesn't want it to happen, doesn't want it to happen. And so the aura of the natural flower and the natural unfolding is strengthening like a force field of light, while that attack is not really penetrating anymore. And so it really connects to the cycles and how, just the maturation process of the seed and how, it's one phase at a time, and you can't rush, like a seedling. It has an unfoldment process. It's kind of like the seed of manifested creation has been going through different stages, and 2012 really marks the period of its blooming, of its movement into a whole nother cycle. Also, just in a sense, in the same way, like a gestation of a birth. Like we're really just beginning. Everything else is sort of in the alchemy, like nature is very alchemical, going through cycles of death, predators eating, and it's just, the whole cycle is, it's always devouring itself. It's always moving and generating. And so we've been going through like these cycles of, death and duality and battle and chaos, and it's sort of been composting. And so it's strengthening, the plants and the true energies that are growing. But, so 2012 really marks a period where our strength is enough to deflect all the attack, or, we weaken and succumb to it because we forgot who we are, we've lost our guard, and it ends up, sort of devouring, and the cycle has to be repeated in some other form or in other, places where the conscious that never bought into the downfall or defeat go to a new world because they don't have to pay for the karma of those that have been asleep. And it's not like judgment, but it's the natural law of balance and physics and love in the universe. And it's, there's no punishing force out there, but it's just the nature of, you either are there or you're not, and you just end up being, in that constant recycling until you can step into your highest potential. So it's kind of like a baby, who's now finally become an adult. It's like there's a quickening and acceleration because there's so much knowledge and there's so little like excuses to be ignorant anymore that it's like everything's out on the table, and now there's a choice. Whereas before we were going through cycles, trying on different hats in different lifetimes, experiencing the whole gamut of the wheel of life and the wheel of necessity and the zodiac, every energy under the sun, to understand the duality of good and evil, to get back to the concept of the tree of life and the restoration and balance of masculine and feminine. Well, now the cat's out of the bag, everything's out there. We've lived enough lives, and we're kind of in that adult phase of the cycles of the planetary body. It's still young, though, and we get to decide, and it's like, ignorance is not bliss anymore. It's like, if you don't see it now, then you don't get to graduate. It's like you either get it or you don't, and you've been given enough, and if you don't get it, sorry, us light workers aren't going to stick around anymore, in this heavy, heavy density, working on transmuting this realm. You can't heal something that doesn't want to be healed. So I think we've come here, we've done our best. We're going to go to higher systems that we're from, higher dimensions of Gaia, and this place can do what it will. But 2012 really, I think, is the bifurcation of, the workers that have come back to the realm that they're really from, and the ones here either, be able to join and transmute and really take this lower density level into a higher expression, or it just, still has to process and work on itself. And those that feel called to come down again will do that. I mean, I just really believe, and I see this energetically just as a clairvoyant type, just these spinning, wheels that, have a chance to kind of magnetize themselves to a different orbit and change their frequency and vibration. But if they miss the point, it's like the cycle has to be repeated, just like, in our own lives. If we don't learn a lesson, we attract the same kind of relationships or partnerships or dramas until we get it. And when you get it, you move to a whole other level and a whole other dimension and a whole other reality. And so a lot of us are moving on, regardless of what happens here. But while we're here, we're trying to transmute it. And I always feel positive about how we're doing with it. But
well, and I like that you said that too, because I've definitely run across individuals who I believe in humanity. I do, and there is a lot of, like, to use your word, there's a lot of density, there's a lot of dark, there's a lot of asleep, if you will. There's a lot of zombieism going on. And for a number of reasons, from the food we eat to the drugs we take, to working 20-hour days and just not being able to even pay attention to what's going around in our sky, our food, our water. So. And not realize that we're being poisoned, we're being this, we're being that, we're being manipulated, and the war is on our mind, and to own our mind, somebody else to own our mind, which, that's just, there are those who argue that no one can own my mind. Well, yes, they can, because if you're buying into the brainwashing techniques that are all around us, everywhere we go, everything that we do, and then blatantly lie. Which just blatantly lie and say, no, that's not going on. These things are not going on. You're crazy. That's a terrible place to be for humanity, to be told that you're crazy because you feel that you're, I'm a slave, I can't break out. And I love that you said ignorance is no longer bliss, because there was a time where you could be in denial and safely stay in that little denial box. But what's happening is, and I think you'll agree with me, is we are exploding from the inside now. And something's happening on the inside of every one of us, inside our consciousness, inside of ourselves. We go inside to see the whole universe. That's where we're going. We go inside to see everything. And so that healing is getting collective, I imagine, and the consciousness, raising that vibration, raising that energy, raising that light force, raising all of it. When you say that you will work here, and then eventually you will rise up out of it, ascend out of it. Specifically, what do you mean by that?
Oh, like work here? I mean, that might not have been the right word, but
that's okay.
There's just a lot of us who do come to assist. It's been an agreement that's lasted for thousands of years, because there has been, since Adam and Eve, because obviously there's been a lot of life before them, and a lot of manipulation when it came to the time of Eden. We've been locked in this loop that's connected to the wheel of necessity in the zodiac, where we've made almost a commitment to ride out the cycles of this couple thousand-year period of being locked in this time matrix, and it has to do with the destruction of the 12th Stargate and the Christ energy, in a sense, being trapped in matter, while a lot of other dark beings that don't even understand that energy are here too, and these lower forms, reptilian type energies, and this planetary body's been just a mix of all sorts of things, and so it's incredible, because we're understanding the inner work, which is why we're seeing the outer reflection, and that's how one shifts it. And so everything that we're learning, really has to do with how these energies have manifested based on what we've bought into, what we've forgotten, and what a loss of, what a huge threat and huge ramification is attached to that. It's like, some people think that they can just get away with this, just kind of, not having integrity, being liars, living a life of destruction and lack of care for others or the planet, and they just think that they can get away with it, make a ton of money, and be just, and it's no big deal. And they, a person doesn't understand that the mind, we only enslave ourselves. Our ego nature can enslave our higher self, because we, either are playing the game or we're a victim to it, because we don't know how to break free. It's like you're either like you're going along with it and you don't feel the pain of it because you've bought into it and you act as an agent in a sense, or you're completely being crushed by it and it's causing anguish and torment. And and I know that all too well how that one feels. I don't know the other, but many do, and that's part of their growth in this particular lifetime. But the thing is, there's a heavy price to be paid. It's not a vibration or an energy or an existence that we're meant to exist in eternally. There's immense ramifications on having to make up for it and understand the lessons of service to others and global family and just unity consciousness and understanding the oneness and being connected to source. And it's not like we always have to be around each other. I mean, I find sanctuary and just having maybe a lifetime just me is great. But while we are dealing with other species and other beings, if we don't learn how to coexist and have mutual respect and appreciate the diversity, then we're locked in this type of cycle. And so a lot of us have come in to do the work of holding the balance and holding the frequency of the other side of the new paradigm, in hopes that people will grow into it and see, wow, that vibration feels a lot better. It's much more integrated. It's much more pleasure connected to bliss and divinity rather than pleasure connected to lower chakras and indulgence and greed. And so we're sort of offering a way out while being absolutely and totally connected to the earth and the roots of it and just the divine being that she is. So in a sense, it's helping, put more gravity and attention on a higher dimension so that we can shift and move into something that feels more right, but it's still Earth, it's still the experience we're having, but we're just in a particular pocket of it that's very much in separation. And so the planetary body is revealing that because of things like, green technologies, nanotechnologies, chemtrails, false flags, Fukushima disasters, oil spills. I mean, she's really carrying the wounds of what it looks like to have that mentality. And if we learn from it and we realize that's not the way we want to go, she's got plenty more to offer us. And a lot of us have just come in here to just hold that light so people can see the difference between destruction and conscious creation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How would you answer the question for somebody who might be at the very beginnings of their waking up into themselves, if you will? What would be the difference between? How would one know if they were operating from divine will or ego? The difference.
It's really knowing that you're sort of free from the notion of success, failure, right, wrong, good, bad. You're more in neutrality, you're more in acceptance, you feel the adventure that's based on a flow, not on a status or a completion where you're appeasing a part of the nature that needs confidence based on what others think and based on status, wealth, things that are external to just the self and the soul. Ego just relies on those things, and it only sees things and self-worth based on whether you win or lose or whether you're right or wrong. And so somebody who's in service to divine will would feel just the unity, just, that it's not ruled by that it's just as much the teacher as the student, that it has a certain level of humility and it offers itself to divine energy, being a vessel for it, letting it work through it, not as a channeler, but somebody who's just in touch with their higher self while also anchored, in the earth, which would mean that being is, connected to nature, sees that everything's alive and that, the mother energy in nature is connected to the Venus transits that's lifting the veils because she's, connected to the highest star systems in source because that's where this physical manifestation of Earth came from, that she, can heal and restore with us and take us way beyond here, and that we don't need to rely on governments or man or humanity to have all the answers. We're way too arrogant and we've destroyed everything that's sacred along the way. So, one who's an ego still kind of believes in that paradigm might still, look to the government or think that and ego's not a bad thing, and it teaches us because it teaches us there's nowhere to go and it's not taking you anywhere. And so it reaches a dead end. And so one will start to go through a transition of a lot of pain, to get out of ego, to deal with, the different attachments, the controls that they've wanted, getting their way. So if one's willful and easily angered, they're probably in their ego a lot. None of us can escape ego, but we can align it to higher self. We can temper it. And that's what the Venus transits are about. It's tempering Mars. It's moving the Mars agenda and the cover-up of Mars into more exposure and into forgiveness and into a ray where it can be embraced because Mars is a celestial body. It's also an archetype. It's also connected to our third chakra. We can't just we can't destroy anything. We need to embrace everything. We need to just there's always a bully and there's always an angry villain, and we have to work on healing that energy rather than staying in this duality of judgment, because we play the role of allowing the dark side if we're ignorant or if we're in opposition by not allowing us to recognize it within ourselves and transmuting it into, you know, a darkness that is more fertile and more like soil and soul, rather than the darkness which is sinister and power hungry. So we got to do the work within ourselves. And I love how you agree, because everything you're saying, I'm just like, yes. You know, the inner where you can see everything. It's like me doing nothing was the greatest teaching I ever had. When I could find opportunities to just do nothing, I learned everything I needed to know.
Right. Well, and in that, what you've just said about the doing nothingness, I can't believe we're really flowing, because every time you say something and you end a little statement, I already have a question about what you just said, and then you sort of answer it again, and I'm just like, yeah. Well, you know, co-creating is. And I love the divine feminine. I mean, I don't know. I know that I have worked with many a shaman, many a chief, who just first 5 minutes I met them have the respect for the feminine energy, the feminine, the goddess, the Gaia, as you say, the understanding that the earth is a creator. She creates. She gives us everything. She's given us everything, breath, life, food, enjoyment, passion. She's given us everything. And to destroy her, or to even have the ego to think that we can destroy her, blows me away. It always has blown me away. Makes me feel sad. I think we've gone through grieving periods as well, where we're watching this happen, and we're saying, stop it, and we just really sort of connect more and more and more, where we are in her consciousness now, thinking like her, operating like her, seeing our own creation, seeing that we are co-creators, seeing that we have the ability to create. What do we do? How do we pray? Because you did mention it. This is a tough one for a lot of people. When we know that there is a percentage on this planet, like you said, the reptilians, the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, whatever you want to call it, big corporations, government, all the infiltration that has happened on the planet. Do we pray for those parties that dwell in the shadows? Or do we just focus on each other in humanity to just raise the bar of humanity? Or do we pray for the dark? Do we bring light to that dark? Or is that what we're doing right now just by having the conversation?
Well, I think, you know, just the second thing you said, you know, brings that energy to the first thing. It's like, to pray, you know, one has to be action oriented. It can't, you know, be a request to the universe. If the prayer is an action, and you live the energy of the prayer, of the intention that you want to put out there, then it would be like this conversation, or us all coming together and raising the bar, because they, you know, have been relying on us feeding them. Whereas when we don't feed them anymore and we just focus on us, then they starve. But they have a choice to either, you know, recognize how to ignite that inner divine flame that everybody has, even them, and join that light. Or, you know, they just wither away in a sense, and need to have a different experience in order to learn and move more closer to that. So I think just us coming together and doing this is a form of prayer to help them, because ultimately, you know, everybody who's bought into it that isn't maybe the ringleaders or the core of it, you know, can start to pull away. And we need as many as possible. So obviously being the example is the best thing. But I think, you know, just in our own thoughts, and instead of getting angry and hateful and feeling, you know, victimized, or, you know, feeling helpless or fearful, sending prayers and realizing that we're not lost in that web. We don't have to worry about our freedom. But, you know, when we do feel that energy overwhelm us to the point where we might start to think that or believe it, to just send light to them and send prayer to them, and turn it not into something that'll hurt you, but that'll, you know, take that hurt and turn that anger into the passion of, you know, creating this transmutation and having that forgiveness. Because it is, in a sense, it came into being, you know, as a result of matter being formed, because that automatically created duality and the negation of what we are, to remember who we are, to be able to take it to the highest of levels. Most people are comfortable just living in 4% of their brain, or 3%, or 3 strands of their DNA, and that's normal to them. But a lot of us know that, you know, we got abilities way beyond that. And
speaking of the DNA, you just mentioned that. talk about that for a little bit. What's happening with our DNA right now?
Well, we came in, pretty much functioning on a 3-strand DNA level, and that connects, a certain manipulation that's happened to our belief systems, to, certain genetic hybridization programs that have, put us in this, cycle that we're in, and it's due to the fact that having not 12 strands activated, we're locked in this cycle, which keeps us in, 3-dimensional Earth, 3-strand DNA consciousness, which means that there's something sort of overseeing it that wants to keep that going. And so when we become reactivated and reorientated by reclaiming our beliefs and aligning them with our higher selves and just the truth we know deep within us, we start to activate it. And, that's why I put a lot of focus on the Divine Feminine, because pulling her out of exile, getting her out of the underworld is probably the biggest piece to it. And this is why the Venus transits are doing what they're doing, and why, that Venus energy is lifting the veils and creating that activation of the natural stargates on Earth. And so when we, recognize that this is already happening and we align ourselves to it, we give ourselves that activation. And so they're trying to suppress that. They're trying to get in the way of it and have locked us into this. And so as we, understand Kundalini and just the power of all that we are, and we start that process of activation, of remembrance, of reconnecting to the Earth, we assist in the natural Stargate opening, which is between 2000 and 2017, and it's the opportunity that we have to move out of this time-controlled matrix. And if we don't take the opportunity and we continue to be locked into it and we don't do the thorough work, it ends up being a weight that we have to carry, and I think a lot of us are sick of it. And so, even a lot of awake beings are still locked into it somehow, and they don't realize it. And I'm not one to say, this is how you should think or feel, or
right.
This is what you should. I don't want that role, but
right.
There's certain things that are so darn obvious. It's like there's a lot of New Age deception out there, a lot of New Age deception where you think, certain conscious beings, it's just like, wait a second, but that energy does not feel right.
It doesn't resonate. Exactly.
But then that's their thing, so I would never take it away. And so
sure.
all I can do is, speak my truth and focus on me, and if it connects with others, great. But I'm not one to say you should and shouldn't. But I do notice that, this is a critical time, and this window period is here, and there's a lot of competition. The dark side is really, trying to step it up. They do not want our activation. They don't want us to understand all, the stuff that we're talking about. But we have to understand that the control of the stargates is same with the control of our DNA. Keeping us down to a 3-strand is similar to keeping Earth in 3-dimensional frequency. Yeah. So when we awaken and we transcend it, we assist of clearing the energies of their controls and opening and activating the 12 stargates, which is what will free us. Because when we're in 12-strand, we're in that consciousness that is not, nothing rules it, nothing is controlling it, and we have to. This is critical. I mean, it's just the urgency is really intense. It really kind of feels harmful in my being sometimes, and that's why talking is like the only thing that feels like it can calm me down at times. But I can just breathe and just know that the flow is there, and regardless, it's not about saving everybody. It's just knowing it in your heart and soul, and that you're doing the best you can to help others see it, because it's their freedom. It's not a belief. It's just an understanding of the energies and just opening them up. We're all unique and diverse. We're not meant to change anybody, but offer, just the connection to more of who each individual is, because there's a massive like battle going on between these two timelines right now, and I'm not going to deny it. But many of us are already over the hump. But I just really encourage people to investigate what it means to just what it means right now to just be in full conscious creation all the time. How you talk to people, how you treat your loved ones, the simple things. You want to keep your energies clear, because a blocked chakra is like a blocked stargate. You lose an opportunity to connect to healing energies, and you just wither even more into a whole other timeline that just is using your creativity and your power against you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like you have a home, and then you want electricity, so you go and plug it into your next door neighbors, and they get the bill for all the energy you're using. And speaking of that, the convergence that you mentioned that's going on, and the separation that seems to be occurring while different people are going through their different levels of digesting and assimilating, and some people haven't had the opportunity to do the work, and they're just beginning the work, and maybe they were on the fence for many years, and so forth and so forth. So it's one of the good things, and I think that you'll agree with this as well, one of the greatest things that's happening right now is because the work has been done for so long. The healers have always been here. So certain people that we have come back and we've been awake and we have been assisting all along, living a different kind of life, a lonely life at times because few like minds around us and so forth and so forth. But what we have the opportunity to do right now is we have the opportunity to step up. We have more opportunity than ever to step up, get the word out, and do the best we can. I always say you don't have to like your brother, but please love your brother. There's a big difference in the two words, the energy of the two words. You don't have to like everyone and everything, but love, get it out there. So, I think that this hour went by too fast, Laura.
I know. And I was going to say, just to end on that wonderful note, it's just really, if people just wonder where to go with all this information or like how to really get to where is the right place to be, it is love. Just love and respect, love other life forms, and just encourage their growth by seeing the good in them and planting seeds of wisdom in them, and instead of judgment, because you can't want to reach a certain goal and carry negative energies or projections onto others. And it's just really important to keep it clean, because negative energy is like pollution. We would not like to see somebody throw trash on a beach. So we got to be careful with our energy at all times, because it pollutes consciousness, and that's the game of duality. So, and our lessons better show us, love and respect and wisdom is the way.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people will absolutely agree with that, because, you were talking about earlier the resonation, how things resonate with us. And, when we talk about positive things, when we talk about healing ourselves, when we talk about certain subject matters make us feel better just by listening to them, you know what I mean? We don't even have to be buying into every little thing, but the energy of that, the resonation of that conversation, makes you feel good. You sometimes you meet certain people and you just go, God, I don't know what it was about them. I walk away just feeling better about myself. And I think that's the whole part of this. To respect is to say to one another, I see you. I see you. We all want to be seen. We really do want to be seen. The government teaches us how to hide from each other. Hide, and scares us to death online and all the rest of it. Like, they can see you. Hide, change. Get off of Facebook. Get off of this. Get off of that. And the reality is we want to be seen. We want to be seen by one another, because that validates our authenticity with one another, and we need one another. So glad that you came on the show, and I'm glad that I finally got to meet you. I hope that you'll come back another time.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. It's just been a wonderful hour, and yes, it's just let the light shine. Everything that doesn't belong there falls away, and we don't need to be overtaken by inferior elements when we have the power to just make it something magnificent. And I'm just so glad to be able to just enjoy that in this moment with you and carry that with me. And thank you so much. I've just so enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Me too. Totally, Laura. And I'll do a video of the show, and we talked about that before, and thanks for the photos. And so everyone will do the video, we'll download the show, so that this will go on forever and ever and ever, into eternity, floating out into space, whatever. It's forever. This moment in time is now forever, Laura. Thanks for joining us.
Yay. Thank you.
All right, sweetheart. You have a great day.
Okay, you too.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye now. And that was Laura Eisenhower. That was fun. That was a good time. We sat in my living room, we drank tea, and we talked. I love it. So, hey, I've got, a few seconds to say aloha and mahalo nui loa, ha'oli makahiki ho, to all of our friends. 2012, rock on. Next week we'll be having Mark McCandlish and Howard Axtell, and he's the writer of a great book, and I'll be advertising that later on. Again, this show will be out there and for everybody to listen to over and over again. You probably want to share it. That was so much fun. I am so glad that we got to spend the afternoon together. And let's not forget Monday on the Just Bernard Show, Awakening the Light Body. Hey, how about that? I think we need to tune into that. It's just more of the good stuff. Awakening the Light Body with Bernard. So that's going to be awesome. You've been listening to the Truth Denied Talk Radio, and I want to thank all of you for doing that and passing on the good word, the good news, and the platform that we have, that the GIC provides us with. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, mahalo nui loa for joining us. I'm Roxy Lopez. Have a great day.
Illuminati. And, of course, this leads into the Mars agenda. So I guess you could say that starting from the age of 6 or 7, I was on an incredible journey of just trying to piece all these different things together, looking at layers that we don't see in view in our school, in our books, or on the record, I guess you could say. So a lot of it has to do with the divine feminine. It has to do with the myths. So when I say cosmic mythologist, it's really looking into the story of creation and how the imbalance between the masculine and feminine has come about, where the invading energies took place and what the stories are behind them, so that we can really be on this path of ascension and break free of the false matrix and the threats of the military-industrial complex by fully being able to identify with it on a soul level, through knowing our history on a soul level. And that's what myth really shows, is the deeper story on a soul level, rather than just the facts and the information, that we're fed. So I was always on those, deep journeys in communication with other beings. I was in communication with the spirit of Ike, and was just really going off the beaten path and way out of the box. And none of my family was ever talking about extraterrestrials. There's no information I'm coming forward with based on family discussions or certain information I was given based on being a part of this family line. I was still close to family, but it was all very much what we see in history books is what I was being told in the family. So when, the rumors about Ike's encounters with extraterrestrials were coming about, I immediately started to remember, just my whole childhood and just this journey that I've been on and how it all really does connect. So I guess just to sort of make a long story short, I've just been piecing dots together, how the myths of the divine feminine and our creation connect with the military-industrial complex and, the Anunnaki, the Illuminati, and, the tree of good and evil, the tree of life, and 2012 and the ascension that we're in right now. And so there's the Venus transits and all this incredible alchemical stuff going on, which is
GIC Radio presents The Truth Denied, Talk Radio, with your host, Roxy Lopez, where truth never lies. If you would like to speak with Roxy on the air, the call-in number is 347-327-9997. Here she is, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'll be your host today, Roxy Lopez. We've got a great guest coming on the show today. I'm very excited to hear what Laura Eisenhower has to say. I know a lot of you are very excited to hear some of Laura's work and what she's, up to for 2012. This is a big year for a lot of us. And Laura will get into a little bit of her background, but for those of you who don't know Laura Eisenhower, she is a cosmic mythologist, a global alchemist, and a clairvoyant healer. And, of course, she is the great-granddaughter of Dwight David Eisenhower. So this is a really special engagement with Laura. She's a busy lady, and she is on a profound mission to complete his legacy, Dwight Eisenhower's legacy, and reveal our true origins with extraordinary intuitive gifts, which are deeply connected with the Magdalene and Sophia energies of love and wisdom. And we're going to talk about that today as well. I know that some of you have come in and you're very interested in hearing more about these energies. Laura's going to run some ideas about 2012 by us and the Mars agenda, divine feminine, the DNA. These are all topics of real interest this year. They have been for a few years for myself, but I know a lot of you are just now kind of stumbling into this paradigm shift, this new world that we are designing as humanity. So I'd like to welcome Laura Eisenhower to the show today. Good morning, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I'm great. So where do you want to begin? Just for those who aren't familiar with you, Laura, why don't we just start with a little background, how you got into what you are doing with, cosmic mythology and being a global alchemist and a clairvoyant healer. What does that mean to you, and how did you stumble into it, and a little bit about your lineage as well? That'd be great.
Sure. Well, it started really young. Just this awareness that I had based on the state of things on the planet, and growing up in this family and seeing what Eisenhower, what he was all about, what his presidency was about, what being a general was about, and we only hear a certain portion of the story in our history books, and I was getting in tune with much deeper layers. Connect with extraterrestrials, that connect with the deeper layers of the military industrial complex, and really what the bigger picture is, and why these events in history have played out the way they have in the last couple hundred years. So in my own intuitive knowing, I just sort of backtracked and went deep into a process of uncovering a lot of different things in our ancient history and the roots of these type of agendas that created the Nazi Party and why I call myself a global alchemist, because I'm sort of riding the currents of the Venus transits, connecting deeply to the planet Venus and the archetypes connected with Venus. And then there's the attack, the whole just unethical power structures that are run by these dark energies that want to stop this natural process. So this connects to stargates, artificial stargates, and natural stargates, and of course our chakra system and our beliefs and how they've been manipulated. So I guess I've been, really connecting dots between myth, ancient history, the Illuminati, the military-industrial complex, the hidden agendas connected to Mars, and the ascension process that we're in, and dimensions and stargates, and seeing that everything, all of this is connected. Extraterrestrials, archons, higher races, we're dealing with a multi-cosmos, we're multidimensional beings, and so we're connected to all these energies. And so I've kind of come up with my own theories and philosophies, with my experience being a backup, and a lot of other whistleblowers, being a backup, and just the story of what I've experienced in this family line also kind of backing all this up. So in a way, I've sort of come up with my own explanation.
Yeah.
That not just philosophy, it really does have a lot of validation on all these different levels. And when I went to the Clairvoyant Institute, I stumbled upon it. They really validated all this. I kind of expected to go there and have them tell me, well, you've been delusional your whole life, and we're really here to kind of help you kind of come back to reality. Because I was thinking all these concepts I had, all these intuitive notions I had in this book that I wrote about the journeys into the underworld and all this mythological stuff, and how it connects to the political game and just, the deeper story and how it's manifesting on the world stage. I thought, maybe I'm, far off. Maybe this is just, I have a wild imagination. But they really did validate. They said, this is really real, and, you have to become senior to these energies. It's not bad karma that you're just under attack, simply for, what you're here to do. Because this realm of duality does not welcome our ascension. So they helped me understand, the level of attack I was dealing with. But it was after, I went to the Clairvoyant Institute that I was recruited to Mars, and everything kind of came to a head, where all the stuff that I've written about and been experiencing was starting to show up in the physical, where the actual agenda and the Mars agenda was steering me to actually inhabit a Mars colony. So all this different stuff I was feeling as far as the imbalance of the masculine and feminine and the global elite rulership and the Illuminati, controls on our planet, all of a sudden it was knocking on my door wanting me to, be a part of this. And so this was a chance to have a showdown and to really anchor my purpose, my mission, which is to rise above these entities, to be a conscious creator who's not going to be swept along by, threats or positive sort of reinforcements about me being protected and just whatever I was being fed that felt very deceitful. It was my chance to stand my ground, which felt like, it was long overdue on many incarnations of really looking to just confront the opposition and gain my seniority and gain my power back. So it had to do with the underworld journey and the cosmic womb and Mother Earth. And so we are all doing this. We all are living very parallel lives as we go through our dark nights of the soul, and we're, pulling our power back from all these, deceitful power structures that have been really harming us with a disguise as being our leaders and actually caring. We're all in this process. So I just sort of tell a story that we're all going through, but a particular dimension of it, which is a little bit more unseen and a little bit more difficult to grasp, I'm bringing as much expression to as possible, because in that place of identification with it, we can transmute these energies and we can do the soul work that'll lift us out of this, rather than, always trying to make sense out of the information, which can keep us in our heads and not in our hearts or in the energies that we need to be in touch with to fully go through this transformation.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. You said a lot there, and I have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned this period of ascension, this period of, I personally have called it, DNA activation, whatever you want to call it, ascension, like you said, lifting up and out of the world of duality,